podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Ed, it's over. We don't have to think about the 2014-15 season anymore, apart from for the next hour or so.
That's right, yeah. And a glorious season it was not. But just about good enough. Fourth in the end. Well, we knew it would be fourth, didn't we? We would have had to beat Hull 6 or 7-0, and Arsenal would have had to lose. And neither of those things happened.
Or even nearly happened.
Yes. We did get... as you alluded to in your intro there, a wonderful moment in the past week or so, though.
We did. It was so much fun, that speech. First of all, when he started talking to David De Gea, it's like, oh, yep, he is honouring our traditions by being a drunk manager at the end of season awards. That's good. So kind of holding on to De Gea's arm, looking him in the eyes, going, I am very proud of you, like as Man United 24 said on Twitter, like a proud dad telling his son the words he's longed to hear his whole life.
Yeah, for about 2 minutes, it was one of those, I sort of want to watch, and I had, I'm watching it between my fingers because it was just a touch cringeworthy, but got much better from there and got extremely entertaining in the end. So yes, he was like a drunk uncle at a party, laughing along with him, and then just kind of worried that he's going to feel someone up.
Mata said afterwards when he was interviewed, we've had a lot of meetings with him throughout the season, so we know how he can behave. It's just like, perfect. I'm sure that was a second language thing, but it sort of sounded like perfectly kind of tolerant, but slightly dismissive.
Yeah, is that article you sent me from UWS, or Red News, was it? Red News?
No, it was UWS.
UWS, yes. Describe with one player having texted a friend describing Van Gaal as a fucking nutter.
Yeah. I believe lunatic was the word he used. Are you sure you want to come and play for this lunatic?
Very good.
Brilliant. But yeah, that he's our lunatic, isn't he? There's something, the last time we watched an angry drunk on that stage, it was Fergie being annoyed about the 2011-12 season and saying, if anything, I'm a winner.
We were robbed of Moyes doing it last year, weren't we?
Of course, teetotal David Moyes and also dull. Not those two things don't go together, as I'm living proof of, ladies and gentlemen. No, but seriously, folks.
You were much more entertaining when you were drunk.
The content of the speech was kind of interesting. There were some people being quite snide about it. The kind of whole, we go for second, yes, as if that's a good thing. But if you actually look at the context, first of all, he's clearly preaching to the choir. Second of all, at the time that conversation was taking place, United were a long way off looking anything like they would be. Even like getting fourth looked really uncertain at that time. So it was quite, and first was obviously gone. So it was just reality. But the bit that was the best bit of the whole speech was when he comes back out going, you're the best fans in the world, but I'm a bit disappointed in you. Ryan Giggs told me to tell you. It was like, what? What did Ryan Giggs tell you to tell us about ourselves? That we didn't thank the saxophonist. This was... So, you got a picture in your head at this point that Van Gaal's gone off the stage after the first part of his drunken speech. Ryan Giggs has leant over to him and gone, Louis, you forgot to thank the saxophonist. And he's gone back on stage and done it.
Yeah, no, that's right. Well, we know Giggs likes sax.
Maybe that's what it was. Yeah, the awards themselves were very predictable, right? Everything went to who we thought it would go to.
Couldn't go anywhere else, could it? Yeah, the moment the comedy at manunited.com fans vote comes up with, and the winner is Wayne Rooney.
Did you see that? I sent you that tweet that the guy who's head of marketing at Manchester United voted for the Rooney goal as goal of the season. Dear. You could not make it up.
It's like in it must be in his contract, right?
You would have thought so. But it's a public vote, man. I don't know if we're going to come to third best goal of the season. That's one of our categories because I think first and second are locked up, right? So I think third best goal of the season is an interesting conversation. So we'll come to that later. I've got a review of the whole game for you, Ed.
Have you? Go on.
All right then.
That's pretty good review. Yeah. No, it was dreadful. United were dreadful. It's our end of season show, so we can kind of skip over the whole game if you like. But yeah, it was bad. United were very poor. There was just nothing to it. So many players went missing, and I suppose the only reason United didn't get tanked is Hull can't stay on side, and they're not as good as Everton.
Yeah, Rooney was Rooney was the parody version of Wayne Rooney that we joke about on the Rantcast. Bad. That's how bad Wayne Rooney was in that game.
Yeah.
Not the answer to the question of who we're going to have to who's going to lead the line at Manchester United to glory.
Well, as I said on Twitter, here was a player who's disinterested, didn't look like he could be bothered, hasn't played well for weeks. But enough about Wayne Rooney. Let's talk about Angel Di Maria, who was also disinterested and hasn't played well for weeks.
I'm not having that. I'm not having Di Maria disinterested in that game. I thought he was really, desperately trying to prove himself. Was my take on it. I thought he had a really bright...
Until he acted like a baby a couple of times and asked, please, Dad, can I come off now?
Any time that any pundit in any level of football criticises a player for being physically...
weak... pathetic,
they should be forced to suffer the same level of pain as that player and then say what they think. Because what if he was in agony? What if he really hurt himself?
I don't think so. Do you?
I do.
You're in a minority of one there, I reckon.
Okay,
yeah,
that's fine.
Maybe he was in terrible agony, and
why would he go off? He hasn't started a game for 3 months. Why would he just go, I can't be bothered with this?
Because he can't be bothered with this. It might be... I mean, that's an awfully hackneyed way of putting it, isn't it? But maybe he can't be. Maybe it's just not for him. Maybe he doesn't want to be at the club. He doesn't look like a player who wants to be at the club. I mean, if you're unhappy in your job, your performance level drops, and his has gone through the floor.
A week ago, he put out quotes saying he's desperate to prove himself at the club. Why would he do that if he wasn't?
Not quite sure it looked like it today. Anyway,
well, that's really weird. I have to say, I'm genuinely surprised by that. I thought it was really clear. I felt really sad for him because it looked like he was finally back in the side, kind of desperate to show that he could make a bit of a difference and stake a claim for next season, and then got injured. One
player you might not feel too sad for is Marouane Fellaini, who finally got the red card he's deserved for so long. And the miracle was, it was for a stamp stroke lunging tackle and not for an elbow.
Yeah, I really thought that Marouane Fellaini was going to do Abel Hernandez after Hernandez decked Phil Jones. I feel like that's what Fellaini's on the pitch for, right? He's supposed to do that. I feel like maybe he was given the wrong instructions, told to take out the wrong player or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, Abel Fernandez is definitely going to get a ban at some point. It's just so blatant. Mind you, if we're going to talk about kind of weak players, Jones, come on, man up. He went down with a punch to the kidneys. Come on.
Seriously, this is exactly what I'm talking about. For saying that, you should have to receive a punch to the kidneys now and see if you stay standing. That's what should have to happen.
Floyd Mayweather wouldn't go down for that, would he?
No.
This is a professional athlete we're talking about.
He was off balance. I looked at it again.
In my day, the ballers were harder.
Yeah, that was really sneaky by Hernandez, though, wasn't he? Just literally, imagine targeting your ire on Phil Jones as well. Like punching a puppy in the head.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. He punched him in the stomach, not in the face. Maybe he's too scared of his face. I mean,
Possibly so. 2 really good reaction saves by Valdez, but an awful lot of flappery as well.
Oh, wow. I mean... That's Valdez in microcosm, that is, isn't it? I did see you were having a debate on Twitter about Valdez's propensity to flap around at a cross and whether he'll actually learn to catch one or not. He won't. He's 33 now and has been flapping at crosses for the best part of a decade, which is his major weakness, I'm afraid. So brilliant with his feet. Although not always, actually, today. Looked a little unsure of himself. Good, reaction saves and reflexes and all of that. He's been playing for a top club for a long time. Can't catch a cross to save his life.
Right, so it's going to be fun times if he's number one. Of course, Van Gaal said on Friday he believes De Gea will stay. Lots of papers printing that exact quote. But I think, we've talked a lot about how straight Van Gaal is this season, but I think that is actually a bit of linguistic difficulty. I'm not sure he was making a definitive statement, or I'm not sure he meant to make a definitive statement to say that he believes De Gea will stay. I think what he was saying, really, if you read between the lines, was he hasn't totally written off the idea of De Gea staying.
I think that quote will be vined by Liverpool fans and distributed on social media within the next month or so.
I mean, sadly for Liverpool fans, the plethora of material to vine and send back to them that exists. Because while we were falling apart in a slightly dull fashion, Liverpool were falling apart with spectacular efficiency.
Oh.
Have you seen Steven Gerrard's goal that Stoke just gave him because they felt bad for him?
I know, sympathy vote or what? Yeah. That is just Steven Gerrard, right? Moment of glory, in it ultimately, failure. And that's been his. Well, he's not been completely unsuccessful at Liverpool, but when it comes to the big one, the Premier League, he has.
Yeah, he has indeed. United fans made lots and lots and lots of noise, clearly having a very good time during that very bad football match. At one point, they started singing "Going Down, Going Down, Going Down." I was thinking, as a team managed by Steve Bruce, 3 United Academy products in the side. Like, Schadenfreude has no limits, no barriers on Schadenfreude, it would appear, within football.
No, right, and I think most United fans would much rather Newcastle have gone down for a number of reasons, not only Bruce, but yeah, there's just something about Newcastle and the Ashley regime and Newcastle fans and their bizarre sense of entitlement and Kevin Keegan and all of that, I don't know what it is exactly, but I'd have quite enjoyed them going down. As it is, they stayed up, Hull went down, and Hull gave a good fist of it. We've talked about the bad. The good was Hull were pretty good for Hull, right? They're not a very good side, but I thought they, at times, took the game to United. Obviously, United hogged possession, as you'd expect, but got the ball in the net a couple of times. A little bit unlucky, Hull-ish, sort of.
Kind of. They were both, seriously offside, weren't they? So
Yeah.
And in a way, they also were fairly lucky that United didn't score one of their sort of decent-ish half chances. I thought Herrera had quite a good game. Very good first half. Okay, second half. There you go. I think that is really everything we need to say about that game, right?
Yeah, it wasn't great. It felt like an end-of-season game. There have been a few like that over the years, although, given that there was that kind of slight, tiny little hope that United could have avoided an away trip to CSKA Moscow in mid-August, with Moscow having, played 15 games in their season and United won. You would have thought there might be a tiny little bit of urgency, but apparently not. 1 foot on the beach.
You say there's been a few games like that over the years. There's been a few games like that over the past few weeks.
Well, there has, yeah. So what is it? 3 defeats, 2 draws and 1 win in the last 6 or so?
Yeah, 5 points out of the last 18 potential points after the derby.
Yeah, not good. And when you put it like that, an extra 13 points and United would have been second comfortably.
Yeah, absolutely. It was on. It really was on. And they blew it. And the Carrick injury was part of that. But drop in intensity was also part of that. And, it's funny, Mourinho, sort of hilarious, Mourinho blamed City, Arsenal and Man United for not being good enough for Chelsea losing to West Brom, which was very funny. It was a very good Mourinho line, that, I thought. But I kind of feel like we can sort of do the same thing and slightly blame Liverpool for being so rubbish. It gave United no sense of urgency whatsoever. But I think the players and the manager have to take some responsibility for United's end of the season being so lackluster, because I just don't buy that this team is brilliant with Michael Carrick in it and terrible without Michael Carrick in it. It just doesn't. It's way too neat, that is.
It is way too neat, yeah, and I think gas has been stepped off significantly and too much, right? And I think it's too easy an excuse. Given Van Gaal's speech at the awards where he said, and Wayne Rooney said go for second, I said yes, punching the air and all that. Didn't feel like they actually played like that, no? So, and that says something about the attitude. And if I was Van Gaal, I'd think, well, I've just seen players who've told me exactly how much they want to be at the club next season. I'm about to go into a transfer window when I've said it's going to be a rough summer for some players, quote unquote. There's definitely going to be a rough summer for some players, and maybe some big name players that we don't expect, because there have been some pretty poor performances over the last sort of 2 months or so.
I was thinking about this. I asked the question the other day, saying, okay, Raphael, Johnny Evans, Falcao, obviously, There was one more that I thought was really obvious that would be going, but I can't remember who it is. Not the players on loan at the moment, but of the players that are in the squad at the moment. Lindegaard, I guess. That kind of feels like it barely counts, but
yeah, it doesn't really count because he was given a free transfer like months ago, and then he just stuck around. I was like, hang on a minute, he's still here. I don't really understand this, but he's got Falcao's gone. We know that. United release the most obvious statement. The BBC ran it with breaking news, none of which was actually true, right? So Lindegaard definitely off. Rafael da Silva definitely off. Hernandez will be sold, I presume, when they've got a decent bid. Nani will be sold if anyone wants to take his wages. Johnny Evans is the kind of one that you expect, and Van Persie you'd expect to go to. Johnny Evans is like borderline, right? It depends on whether they guess another defender. Let's assume they do, and then lots of talk about Nicolas Otamendi. We'll come to transfers later, but Evans I'd think so, and Van Persie I'd think so too, and Di Maria is a big question mark for me. I'm not sure further than that whether there'll be any sort of big name departures. Probably some loans. I mean, Januzaj might go out on loan. I guess they'll probably sell Nick Powell. That doesn't really count, does it? He's barely played for United. Question mark over Paddy McNair. Will he get a loan? Van Gaal's been reluctant to loan him. There was some talk about that before. James Wilson, again, reluctant to loan him. Depends on United's striker situation on the sort of opening day of the season next season, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I mean, I think from Van Gaal's perspective, like the choice of loan destination is really key, right? Because he's so obsessed with teaching players that you send a young player out on loan for a season, it's, you can't control their education at that point, can you? So I do think that's it's different for Van Gaal than it might be for some other managers. But
yeah,
if he doesn't send Januzaj on loan and he doesn't play him, that's like really dodgy.
Yeah.
Same with Wilson, kind of, but Januzaj kind of a season ahead, right?
Okay, so there's two things here. One, Van Gaal doesn't have the same kind of network in England, so he doesn't have the kind of trusted set of clubs to send players to. The other way, looking at that, of course, is Fergie had like pure cronyism when it came to loaning players out. I mean, he either went to his son, literally to his son, or his favourite managers or clubs around the country. So, some of which worked and some didn't. A lot of that depends on the players taking their chance and the circumstances in which the club where the loanee goes to finds itself. A couple of unlucky loans, for example, for Federico Macheda, ended up playing in relegation teams, and it didn't help him much.
No, absolutely. And to go back to big name players maybe on the way out, like if Di Maria leaves, I'll be sad, but I don't think you could call that a massive shock. It's not like that wouldn't be a shocking transfer. I actually think he's going to stay. That's my take on it, but whatever. I certainly wouldn't be shocked if he left. Van Persie, it's almost the other way around, where I'm kind of sort of expecting him to leave, but I would not be totally shocked if he ends up staying, because he can take on a kind of senior player role used on occasion if he's happy to transition to that. But that seems kind of a long shot, because he's got a big ego on him, hasn't he, Van Persie, as you're supposed to have if you're a brilliant striker.
Big ego, and he looks really rusty when he doesn't play for a while, which is quite a lot at the moment.
No,
so
that's true.
I just don't see the value, but I suppose if it's not on an anti-Van Persie rant or anything like that. He's been a great player for United. Well, at least he was in one season, and then had two kind of bitty seasons where injury have really affected his performances. I think there's just something in particular over the last 6 months just feels like he's getting old, right? That just extra bit of sharpness seems to have gone. That might be fitness, or it might be age catching up with him. So kind of feels you'd move the player on, right? I mean, United haven't always done that, and Fergie in many ways has proven right by not moving players on, especially the greats. Why would you? Arsene Wenger over the years has looked at the data and kind of almost made a decision to move a player on when they've hit their peak and they're on the way down, and he can maximise the value from selling them. I don't think, Di Maria aside, I don't think United will get very much money for any of the players. Not in the tens of millions anyway. So. But in aggregate, add them all up and they might get a good chunk there to go towards buying whomever.
Yeah, and that the wage thing is going to be there. There's a lot of wages gone out the club in the last few seasons, the last 2 seasons, and there will be again this summer, of course. Especially Falcao's wage will be a big flexibility in the budget, right? But I kind of almost wouldn't be surprised if a player that we haven't mentioned yet gets sold. There was talk of Tony Valencia. That would seem weird because he seems like Van Gaal's put a lot of trust in Valencia. But I do wonder if actually this summer, some of the players that he has used as sort of trusted lieutenants but are kind of underwhelming in the absolute, actually he might look to move them on. But then you're really only talking about young Valencia and Fellaini there. And any of those leaving would be a surprise after this season. Although, you know, in 2 out of those 3 cases, I certainly wouldn't be shedding any tears to see them not in the squad.
2? 3, yeah. Well, look, Young's definitely saying he's just signed a new contract, so no question there. I wouldn't be, so it depends on who United bring in. I mean, lots of talk about Gaetan at the moment. It would disappoint me a little bit, but again, let's have a fuller conversation later about transfers out. But so Young's definitely going to stay. It wouldn't surprise me if he's not a bit more of a bit part player next season. Fellaini, I'm going to assume he's going to stay, but you know, you never know. It would massively surprise me if he's as important next season, and I think that would say that United haven't got the players they wanted if he is. And Valencia, well, Van Gaal seems to like him, and it would be a case of bringing in 2 right backs for him to leave.
Yeah, absolutely. So an interesting summer ahead. The season that's passed, you know, the last few weeks have been thoroughly underwhelming, but the few weeks that went before that were awesome. So if you'd flip-flop that round and the last period of the season had been the kind of 6-game run, particularly the 4-game run we've talked about ad nauseum, the definitely the highlights of the season were that City game, that Liverpool game, that Tottenham game. They were something else, right? And especially given the history of our recent past against Liverpool and City and last season and all that sort of thing.
But it makes you think whether that was what's to come in the future and, you know, a positive sign ahead and we're on the right path and we just need to find that consistency. Which is what a few of the players have said in recent times, or whether that was just a blip, because you could almost like cut the season up into 3 parts. It was the kind of pretty horrendous opening, 13 points from 10 games or whatever it was that Van Gaal talked about in his speech. Then that kind of long stretch where United were picking up points but were pretty dull, played some really uninspiring football but got points, and it was really important they did at that time. And then the latter third of the season where you had that sort of, you know, burst of some excellent performances, 6 games on the bounce that United won, and then this really disappointing end, you know, and like kind of in the macro, it's just been good enough, hasn't it? Just good enough. KPIs met. United, they've gone round in par and no better than that. But there's been some shanks along the way, I think.
Yeah, and a couple of eagles.
And a couple of eagles, yeah. Yeah, that's it.
The interesting thing, there were good performances before the great performances started. Think back to Newcastle, Hull, Leicester at home. That one was a bit dull, but the Newcastle and Hull game I thought were pretty great at home. I mean, obviously that's no great shakes, and our home form in general has been excellent, you know, all season, barring a few little wobbles, but certainly compared to last season. But of course, our away form has been really problematic. And, you know, the question of whether that really good run of form was a blip or sign of progress, I guess it won't surprise anyone to know that I lean towards the optimistic on that, but it's not just pie-eyed, rose-tinted spectacles, I don't think. It's actually just about understanding the nature of learning, right? Those performances were broadly what we would have expected Van Gaal's good Manchester United to look like. They were surprising only in that they emerged suddenly out of apparently nowhere, rather than they were surprising in the absolute, right? A really effective 4-3-3, lots of really great passing and interplay, loads of chances created by our creative players. None of that would have surprised us at the beginning of the season that we'd see that at some point. So it did really feel like the kind of the gelling of the Van Gaal system, the getting of the philosophy, which is, interestingly enough, a word he's almost completely stopped using. I don't know if you've noticed that. I think someone's had a word. But
if they got it, they forgot it. I mean, the funny thing is that I think it was Wayne Rooney this week talked about how hard it was to get to grips with all the information and all the changes and Van Gaal's way of working. Was it Rooney or Smalling? One of the two.
I don't know, actually. I haven't heard this.
And so fine, that's validation of that viewpoint, that it's taken them a long time to get to grips with the way that Van Gaal works, and some of the better performances came on the back of them learning. Hard to explain what happened over the last 6 games of the season in that case, though, because, what had they done enough and thought, well, we've done enough now, Liverpool have fallen away, we can't be bothered anymore. And I know that's really reductive, but it kind of feels like that if that's the case.
I think it's a combination of things. I think, firstly, learning doesn't go in a straight line. If you remember back when you were learning to drive, you have periods of competency, right? And then it kind of goes away as the learn's bedding in.
I think I had about 3 lessons.
Yeah, but, you're special, aren't you, Ed? We all know that.
I am very special.
But, so in a way, you kind of expect the dip, the regression to the mean to happen at some point, but you're hoping that there's a kind of underlying continual learning and growth happening underneath that. And secondly, the team was really shaken up by injuries, and I think the blip in all this is the Crystal Palace game, because the Crystal Palace game in the second half was very short on quality, but it was extremely high on endeavour. And it's almost like that's kind of the proof of the theory that they've let the foot off the gas, because that was really the only time when they really put their foot on the gas. And that was when they were under a bit of pressure and they needed that result to kind of solidify fourth. It's not great if it is the case that they've taken their foot off the gas. It is really quite worrying. And I wonder if they will live to pay for that if we end up in the Europa League. That's my take on why it was good and then it wasn't again,
Yeah. I mean... Yeah, fair enough. It really does worry me. I'm sure that Van Gaal, he's a smart man, right? He's going to be looking at that and he'll be making an assessment about the character of some of his players as well as their performances, And so how do we do this? So why don't we go through the squad in categories: goalkeepers, defenders, midfielders, forwards, and give, it doesn't have to be points, but give our assessment of each.
Are we going to give a best and worst in each category?
Yeah, why not? Why not?
It's time to dole out some awards.
Yeah. I'll actually do some ratings on there. I'll take my bank holiday and I'll probably write about 5,000 words as I do every year, and ratings at which point people will say, "You're rubbish, I hate you," or something akin to that.
I'm taking my bank holiday and writing a ranking from top to bottom of every single United player, so we can compare notes after it's done.
Very good. We can. Obviously, you're wrong, but hey, let's start with goalkeepers then. So David De Gea, pretty disappointed season, really. I thought
2 bad games. Bad games all season.
Well, the funny thing is, thinking back to it now, of course, the narrative is always the thing you remember like last in many ways, right, with football. So, which is right, you're only as good as your last game and all that. But towards the beginning of the season, his performances were a little bit shaky. Not bad, but a little bit shaky. And I actually wrote a piece. So looking back on it, I wrote a piece in sort of late September saying, basically David De Gea's form, what's going on, sort of thing. And it kind of coincided with some shaky performances from United defensively in the beginning of the season. But since then, he's just been magnificent. And, the very, very rare mistake you can highlight only because he's been so excellent.
I believe that you wrote that article before the Everton game, because that was the turning point, right? That was the absolutely outstanding performance. One of the best it's definitely the best goalkeeper performance I've ever seen with my own eyes in real life. One of the best I've ever seen in any circumstances.
Well, I reckon, one of his mates is maybe Juan Mata. He likes a bit of social media, doesn't it? Has sent it along to him and said, "Dave, buck up your ideas. The rant's on you."
Sort it out, son. Yeah, absolutely. He turned him around. But that Everton game was remarkable. And then, from then, it was entirely solid until, I think, that goal against Liverpool in the away leg, which took kind of a deflection, and then there was the Benteke goal after that. Then the Everton game's kind of a little bit shaky, but then since then, brilliant again from that Crystal Palace save onwards.
Because we did talk about his focus may have gone, and I wonder whether that wasn't just right in the middle of his negotiations with Real Madrid.
Or with United, even.
Yeah. Yeah. Is he negotiating with United? I know United keep wheeling in barrows of cash going, "Here you go, mate. We can give you in pesos if you want." Or...
Pesos? Wow.
Mexican currency, whatever.
Talking of politics, De Gea was very unhappy after Eurovision. Did you see all that? He was fuming. Not about the singing, it's just about national politics, he was saying. The last person on earth to realise that.
Yeah. How many points did she get? Like 5 or something. It wasn't very good. Beaten by the Australian, wasn't she?
I have no idea. I just saw the tweets from De Gea. He just had a spectacular season, and we're really going to miss him because the amount of points he got us this season is ridiculous, and some of those points would have been earned by another goalkeeper also, but absolutely without a doubt not all of them. That Crystal Palace save, the way he did this very fast crab walk, not really crab walk, but crouch squatting walk out towards the striker and managed to get a really solid hand to it. It was an absolutely astonishing piece of goalkeeping technique, not like amazing lightning reactions, although that too, but it was the application of technique, and that's been the story of his season. I think his best performance was that Liverpool 3-0 at home, where he just marshalled Raheem Sterling, and it wasn't the one with the most spectacular saves in it, but as a kind of all-round, absolutely bossing it goalkeeping performance, it was pretty spectacular.
Yeah, great performance, that one, because that would have changed the nature of the game completely if he hadn't, a couple of one-on-ones with Sterling that he managed to save, probably putting an extra 0 on Sterling's wages. No, or didn't. Anyway, yeah, just brilliant. Nothing you can say about Lindegaard. He's been picking his nose all season, I assume. Really weird that he's still with the club. Just don't really understand why he didn't go in January when Valdez signed, but he didn't. And in Valdez, he's had a game and a half-ish in which he didn't have much to do last weekend, and then had a mixed game, as we just discussed today against Hull.
It kept our first clean sheet for weeks on end.
True.
Maybe that's more about Hull than Victor Valdez. But
give him the golden gloves.
Yeah, so it's he seems nice. Same with Lindegaard, actually. They're quite nice lads, our goalkeepers in general, I find.
Yeah. So someone tweeted me and said, it's just like Jim Leighton, just prettier. Yeah.
So right backs.
Yeah, well, we've only had one, haven't we? You look back on it and Raphael's played 12, 14 games or something like that. Not that many. Haven't seen him in months. We presume he's still alive, but he got an injury and could never get back in the side. Of course, he got an injury and then got another injury just as he was regaining fitness again in the under-21s. So yeah, like a 3 out of 10 for Raphael. Horrible season. He'll be off. Such a shame that him and his brother didn't make it. The Brazilian Neville's turned out to be the Brazilian Phil Neville's. And Tony Velez, he's been solid enough, but he just makes mistakes defensively, mostly in terms of his positioning. It's funny, I was listening to Graham Hunter's podcast with Gary Neville this week. It's a couple of months old. Finally got around to listening to it. Fascinating chat between the two of them. And one thing Gary Neville said was that he always, because Eric Harrison had told him, looked at the positioning of the senior pros at right back, and that was the thing he focused on most. And he'd like to think that he hardly ever got out of position through his career. And I think that was right about Neville, actually. He was half decent going forward, not brilliant.
He got better over time, didn't he?
Got better over time, and at one point he was United's best crosser in post Beckham. But that wasn't the best part of his game. He was very solid defensively, and yeah, he's right. He never got himself out of position. Problem with Tony Valencia, is that he gets himself out of position a lot, and that's because he doesn't really know how to play it. I think Van Gaal likes him because he's got pace and he works hard, and he actually doesn't take very many risks with the ball, which is a good thing and a bad thing, isn't it? In that position, never takes on a player anymore, save for that one game where he decided to do it and beat a man a couple of times. So he's safe enough. There, but clearly an upgrade needed.
Yeah, Raphael, you said he played games in the teens, 6 starts, 4 substitute appearances in the league. And it's interesting because he did have good games. He had a really good period. I can't remember if it was West Ham or Everton where I thought he was right up there with the best performers on the pitch. I think it was the West Ham game. And it was just such a shame that he just kept getting injured. And then so he was injured at first, he came back, he sort of played pretty well. then got injured again, and then it was after that Van Gaal just gave up on him because he hugely trusted Valencia, because for all his defensive vulnerability, he's incredibly safe on the ball. His pass completion is joint top of United's pass completion charts. Now, that's not an end of itself by any stretch of the imagination, but it does indicate something, doesn't it, about the way Van Gaal likes to play. Do you remember that game? I think it was the one we went to together where he played in central midfield, and you said this is ideal because you're just going to get the ball and knock it inside and play it all safe, and it's perfect.
Yeah, only Rooney and De Gea have played more games than Valencia this season, so that kind of tells you something about the trust that Van Gaal has in him. I'd be absolutely astonished if United don't buy another right back, though. I mean, and it would be almost criminal in terms of its neglect on the team. It's needed, but he's done okay.
Yeah. Left back, we've got tons and tons of left backs, but they've all had various difficulties at various times in the season, all had periods of injury. I mean, we could do this pretty quickly because it's all stuff we've covered, but Luke Shaw, when he played well, he was excellent.
Yeah, just not enough of those games, and I think it would be unfair. I mean, I'm a big fan in terms of the raw materials, but it'd be unfair of me to praise him too much because there just haven't been those games, right? So it'd be from memory. But he's played 18 games and, he's just been unfit too often, right? And not unfit in the Van Gaal sense of just not, sharp enough, but just been injured too often. And Van Gaal blamed it on burnout last week. Called him out and has kind of forced the England under-21s not to take him to the Euro under-21s this summer. Probably a good call, that one. Daley Blind had a few his best games were definitely a left back, not in midfield this season. I thought he performed pretty well, coincided with United playing well as well. And Rojo's played a couple of games there, not many.
Decent-ish number, maybe a few more than you think. A good sort of 6 or 7, I'd say.
Yeah, and he's solid there. He's like kind of, these are a really lazy comparison, but he's Gabriel Heinze, isn't he? It's not his natural position, but he's going to work harder.
Yeah, absolutely. Shaw's performance against Chelsea, so unfortunately got injured after that, but Shaw's performance against Chelsea was the kind of the thing of like, oh, this is why we paid £30 million for a child at right back, at left back, sorry, because it was really, really special display from what could turn out to be a really special player. And it's fantastic that Van Gaal's put his foot down, and it was really more just praise for Van Gaal's dealings with the press, really, because the way he talked about that, it was just like, he said, I saw this described as Louis van Gaal winning in one of the papers, but it's not Louis van Gaal winning at all. It's Luke Shaw winning. This is about the protecting the players, and the England doctors agreed with my doctors in the end, and Gareth Southgate and Roy Hodgson both ended up agreeing with me. So this isn't about me winning. I thought it was excellent.
Well, and that's fair enough. Prior to that explanation, I mean, he effectively manipulated the media very well, because he went out and said, look, this lad's approaching burnout. We have to protect him. If we don't protect him, bad things are going to happen, basically, right? So he's then put England in a position of, if they took him, they are taking a risk with this player, and it's a PR disaster if he went on and got injured. Anyway, so, sure, mediocre season, honestly, but I think there's so much. But if he can just stay fit next season, he's definitely going to be United's left back, and I think it'll be a massive plus, because he'll allow United to attack from fullback as well, right, on that side. Blint, he's done well there. I mean, if we can have a situation where they're both fit and Blint can play there if necessary, great. We're very solid there, and Rojo, I think we're pretty covered at left back, right? Not about to buy one in the summer.
No, for sure. Unlike Real Madrid offering us Cohen-Trau and for David De Gea, it's like, oh, do you still want him? Remember when you wanted him before? We don't need him anymore, Real Madrid. We've bought 3 left backs since then.
That's like us. That's like Real Madrid offering us, the British Eurovision Song Contest winner. Participant.
Centre-backs.
Yeah, what a mixed bag. I mean, Smalling, who's grown into the season, and in the end you'd say he's United's best defender. No arguments there, I don't think. He's just had a very good sort of second part to the season. After that brain-dead moment against Manchester City. Could have broken him, that one, didn't. Jones, he's had some very good performances, some mixed performances, some great moments, and a punch in the stomach. Still feel okay about Jones. I hope that next season is the real breakthrough. We'll see. Rojo looked excellent when he was fit.
Few things. One, you talked about narrative sort of defining the season, but like Rocco's played 100 fewer minutes than Phil Jones across the whole of the season. Jones and Smalling were both out of action a lot. In the end, Smalling pips Jones by 1 minute in the minutes played on a pitch. It's kind of interesting. Their relative season, the two of them, has been kind of fascinating, because I think it's ultimately quite surprising that it's Chris Smalling that's had the better of the two seasons. And Jones has maybe had the highlight reel moments, but also the low light reel moments, because when he's bad, he's very, very bad, right? Johnny Evans. Everyone wants to write Evans off, and I think I can see why. It's been a very bad couple of seasons. But part of me still thinks there are some things he does very well. Some of his reading of the game is still of quite a high quality, and I wouldn't be completely beyond belief shocked if Van Gaal hung on to him and brought about something of a transition in his reputation as he has done with certain other players. But I think that the things acting against that are he's going to be bringing in top quality talent in central defence this summer, and Evans' injury record is such that it seems hard to imagine he's going to sustain that and somehow claw his way back into that position.
You reckon he's in top 5 best central defenders in the world, Paul? Someone did ask us about the awkward pauses on Twitter when I say something you really disagree with.
I saw that. That's why I left a really long one there. So, defensive midfielders, then. 2 of them in the whole squad. I guess Valencia played that. Are you
counting Wayne Rooney in one of those?
Yeah, he did have a go, didn't he?
Carrick, excellent, much better than last season when he was fit. And of course, it all fell apart when he was out of the team. And that kind of boosts his reputation somewhat, doesn't it? So, I think he's had a very good season there, Carrick. He's obviously a mature player. He's going to get more injuries. But he does what Carrick does. He reads the game brilliantly, and people kind of forget that, And when he's out of the side and you put in quality players in there, you can't do it to the same extent at all. You notice the difference.
I mean, the thing that you're right, but to say he's had a good season, he's had a good half a season. He's played less than half the minutes that De Gea's played. De Gea's, of course, played almost every game. He's played less minutes in the first team than Angel Di Maria this season, Michael Carrick has. So, huge chunks of the season where he just wasn't available. And there is a heck of an overlap between United's good performances and the times he was available. And that must have some meaning, even if it's not the be all and end all of the story. But yeah, when he's been around, he's been dead good for the most part, hasn't he? He looked really important. He certainly was one of our best players during our best period, wasn't he?
Yes, he was. Yeah, and then the other one being Daley Blint, who I just. Yeah. I don't want to sound like a broken record. I always feel a bit meh about him. It doesn't feel like a natural position to me. But then again, I'm not quite sure what his natural position is. Maybe in front of the mirror.
He's not like that though, is he? He's a good man, Daley Blint.
No. He's a solid addition to the squad. He's just not Carrick, and it's. I kind of think. What would it take for United to win the European Cup, or Premier League first, European Cup next? Can I see Daley Blint anchoring United's midfield as Chris Smalling lifts old big ears and United are European champions again? Not really. And that's the kind of benchmark. And so maybe that's why I kind of feel disappointed with him.
I can't either, but what I can see is him playing a really important role as an understudy in a quarter-final when someone's suspended, or getting a bunch of games in a row in those kind of games which we have to grind out, not particularly exciting wins on the process of a league season. As you say, important, useful squad player rather than superstar.
Yeah. Herrera's played a couple of games there. Did all right. Not his natural position. He's an intelligent player, so I think he does okay there. And he's a little ratter, isn't he? So he likes to put a tackle in as well, so he probably quite enjoyed it. Wayne Rooney played there once, something like that. Van Gaal talked about it.
It wasn't great, was it? Rooney playing in defensive midfield.
Rooney playing. You can cut the rest off.
So at this point, I want to put forward my a hypothesis, which is that Ander Herrera is our outfield player of the season. Ander Herrera has been our best outfield player this season when you take the season in totality. Now, he missed the first third of the season, essentially, but he's 10th in total minutes played in the squad, putting him in the first 11 of...
You love this stat, don't you? It's your stat of the week.
It is minutes played, yeah, absolutely. I just thought it was kind of interesting because, as you say, that it's this thing about narrative. We remember the broad brushstrokes, but if you look at the details, sometimes they're slightly different. And Herrera's been consistently... very rarely has he put in an actual poor performance, maybe one or two all season. A few times he's been absolutely excellent, and generally he's just been solid every time he plays. And talk about a player who we look better with him in the team than without him in the team.
Definitely. I mean, I don't know if I agree with the assessment that he's been our best outfield player, but then again, it's a really difficult choice, that one, because... if Carrick had played the last 6 games, would I be thinking Carrick was our best outfield player? I probably did think that up until that point. Smalling has grown, so the kind of narrative of his season is more positive than it would have been if you just jumbled it up a bit. And Herrera, of course, has been excellent. I think he's been United's best player in quite a few games. But he didn't play that much of the season, or at least didn't play that much of the first half of the season. So, he's been very good, and I'm sure... as we mentioned last week, he's grown into the season as well, hasn't he? And he's become a better player than he was at Bilbao. I think he's added more to his game. I think he'll be a very important player for United next season in what I expect will be a 3-man midfield. And I think he will be the kind of, half defence, half attack player. And a very important player for United, and I think he'll have an excellent season next season. Is he United's best outfield player? I don't know, maybe.
I also think now there is a player that you really can see lifting the European Cup. You really can see him achieving very high levels of performance in very big games. We sort of joked last week about him replacing Iniesta at Barcelona. Doesn't feel that far-fetched to see him doing that,
Yeah, I mean, he's not attained those levels of performance consistently.
No, not yet.
So Iniesta levels of performance, he's not scored the goal, in the dying minutes of injury time to win Barcelona a semi-final at Stamford Bridge. Don't know why I remember that one, Chelsea fans. So when it comes to other midfielders, Juan Mata feels like a mixed season, because for a lot of the time it didn't feel like he was in the side, but actually he's played a lot of minutes and a lot of games for United.
Yeah, he's number 4 in my list that I've got up in front of me of minutes played.
You've just got you're like some kind of mass murderer with a scrapbook wall, haven't you? With loads of the stats, weird stats. It's like me and my shortest pass, like average pass length.
I've just got Who Scored open, and I've got the team sorted by number of minutes played on the pitch. And Juan Mata is number 4, which is slightly counterintuitive, because there certainly felt like there was a period of the season where he was seriously excluded from proceedings. But it turns out that was actually a really short period of the season, and he's played loads and loads and loads.
And scored a lot of goals as well for United this season. So take all that. He's played a lot of games, he's scored a lot of goals. He's played in a variety of different positions. He's had a very good season. The only disappointing thing is that he hasn't locked down number 10. And of course, that's a lot of that's to do with A, the preference and special privileges that Wayne Rooney gets for some bizarre reason, and B, that Van Gaal effectively stopped playing with the number 10 as the season wore on, So he's done well as that kind of outside false winger, as Van Gaal called him. It's not the position that I think he would like to play, although his best stuff is always when he cuts inside. He's not going to beat a man for pace or trickery or anything like that, So that kind of role in a non-winger role, as opposed to the one that David Moyes tried to play him in, hugging the touchline, is one he can play. You just kind of he's just a player you'd like the ball to go through as a number 10. If United are going to play with a number 10, I'm not sure they will next season.
I think he has had plenty of average games this season, Mata has. Now, obviously, is everyone that pays any attention to this podcast or anything I write or tweet about will know that I absolutely love Juan Mata. I love watching him play football, and when he's playing well, that's my very favourite moments this season have been Herrera and Mata playing well together. Those have been the highlights of the season. And it's just he's just a brilliant footballer. He plays the game in the way I love to see the game being played. But he's had a lot of performances where he wasn't able to influence proceedings, where there was that whole period of time where basically every time he played away from home, he looked really rough. And the sort of turning point for that was Spurs away. That game where we were fighting, it wasn't football, it was a fight for survival or whatever it was that Van Gaal called it. And in the end, of course, Mata's very best performance of the season came away from home. A kind of United career-defining performance away at Anfield.
Right, but then came the defeat at Chelsea and defeat at Everton, both of which were very poor games from him, right?
Yeah,
so, yeah, you're right. On the road, it's not been as good. But then again, United as a whole collective have been pretty poor on the road. So, yes, I mean, you're right. It's a decent season. He's played a lot of games, scored a lot of goals. He's had some impact, but the consistency of performance and the standard of performance isn't quite what we'd like. I don't know. Is that the best of Juan Mata? Is that the Juan Mata that won Chelsea Player of the Season twice in a row? We've had a season and a half of Juan Mata. Is that him? He's a joy to watch. He scores goals, but he doesn't influence games.
I mean, he doesn't influence every game, because he definitely influences games, doesn't he? When he's on song and when it's working, he's hugely influential. But there haven't been too many games that he's run this season, Liverpool one being the one that leaps to mind. But, I've just, for the love of all that is holy, hope Van Gaal keeps him around and finds a way to make an important part of the side, because he's just so good to watch.
He's definitely going to stay around. He'll be at United next season. Kind of depends on who you believe on this one, right? So intuitively, I think Van Gaal is going to go with a number 9 and 2 wide players, one of which Memphis, and he's going to want to inject some pace into the side, and he's going to play with 3 in central midfield, one of which is a defensive midfielder to be bought, one of which is Ander Herrera, and one of which is another, right? And whether that's Fellaini or Di Maria or a new player, Gundogan, or whoever we believe, who's going to add some balance in there. And my instinct tells me that he's going to want to play with some pace on that right-hand side, and Matt is going to struggle to get a game because he's not going to get a game at number 10. If Van Gaal's looking to inject some pace into the side, he won't get a game on the right, on the inside right either. And that would be a shame for him, because then he'd go back to sort of, being in and out of the side. But maybe I'm wrong, and maybe Van Gaal will find balance with one player being the attacking player in Memphis and one player coming inside to try and control the game. And in that scenario, Maddie's got a great chance of playing like he does now, but in that role.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that is not unlikely. But of course, that's going to depend hugely on the transfer window, isn't it? And who we're bringing. Because if we end up scoring Gareth Bale in a ridiculous coup of some description, that there's a lot of big splashy signings, opportunistic signings that could happen this summer that could disrupt all that balance. But intuitively, you think that Memphis on one flank and Mata coming in off the other, it's going to be a bit of a nightmare for defences, isn't it? There's a lot to deal with there. The other player, of course, that's played a lot at attacking midfield this season, Marouane Fellaini, had a better season than anyone would have predicted he would have had, but I think he's had as many bad games as he's had good games.
Yeah, and a lot of bad games recently.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not least Hull, where he tried to take someone's leg off.
He scored some really, really vitally important goals this season. Not got a single assist, interestingly enough. That's just a weird quirk of statistics. But he has scored 6 goals. I think 3 of those goals, I looked it up earlier, 3 of those goals have come in games where they were draws or 1-goal victories, so just a bunch of really crucial goals for Fellaini this season. He scored that goal that kicked it all off against Tottenham, obviously the header against Palace, that goal against West Brom.
Yeah, he showed a turn of pace in that goal as well against Spurs, and a good finish.
He did.
It's never happened again. So I wonder whether that just wasn't some quirk of the TV. The picture's speeding up. You know how you watch old showreel of games and they look like they're 10 times faster than they really... I think that happened in that moment. Fellaini doesn't really run that fast.
It's kind of interesting to me, and it's probably dangerous to read too much into this. It's kind of interesting to me that Fellaini was dropped in favour of Di Maria for this whole game, and actually Young played inside and Di Maria played out wide rather than keeping Fellaini in that position and dropping Young, which sort of, I think, tells you something about the pecking order in Van Gaal's mind. I think Van Gaal said, I can't drop Fellaini at one point in the season. He didn't exactly say, I don't want to drop Fellaini at that point, you know.
I also think it's something about the evolution of this side, right? There is no top side. I just can't think of any top side that plays a kind of battering ram in there. I mean, top in European terms. Maybe, you know, when Carsten Janker was a forward for Bayern years ago. But just not too many. And I cannot see Fellaini being an important part of the side next season. Maybe I'll eat my words. I'd be really surprised. I think United, Van Gaal will definitely want to play another sort of, you know, attacking player who can really affect games. And I actually think over the last 6 games, there are some of those games, and especially games where teams defend, that United have missed having the ability of Di Maria in there to create a goal, and his way of creating goals. As bad as he's been, he's still United's top assist maker, right? This season, as opposed to the Fellaini way of making goals, right? Which, as you've just said, no assists, right? That methodology hasn't seemed to have created the goals that we wanted. He scored a few crucial ones. They've, you know, 3 of them come in the last sort of 10 games or so, haven't they? But I don't think he'll be part of the side next season in any significant way.
That's my take on it too. There are people that feel very differently. There are people that feel that he's kind of tarred with the brush of being associated with Moyes, and actually he's been really important to us in a bunch of big games, and I think there is some truth in that position, but I just think if you look at the totality of his contribution, we can do better. You know, it's not greedy and spoilt to expect a slightly higher quality of player. And, you know, apart from his weird violent streak, I find Fellaini quite endearing. He's a very likeable chap in interviews. You know, he does have this really nasty streak on the pitch. In we've talked about this before. He's snidey, isn't he? He's not an enforcer in the sense of like putting in a tough challenge to win the ball.
No, he doesn't do that at all.
He's a damager, you know. So you mentioned Di Maria, which I guess is a neat segue, since you can't really, it's really difficult to attribute him to a position this season because he's played absolutely all over the place.
The bench.
Yeah, but, you know, 13th most minutes played in the squad, played more than Michael Carrick. But yeah, he's obviously been on the bench for a huge extended run in this last period of the season. But, you know, we're only in Europe because of Di Maria's assists and goals earlier in the season as well. He looked so good at first, and I can't help thinking that there's more to come. I don't buy the idea that he's not trying. I'm sure he's fed up with having been on the bench for so much. But
yeah, I'm not sure not trying is the right way of putting it. That really is reductive. But the performances aren't coming, right? And I don't think that he is performing on the pitch in the way he said off the pitch, which was he really wants to show. I'm not sure I see that at all, you know? And if that was the case, and he was, you know, the best player in training every week, and he was forcing Van Gaal to play him. And, you know, I feel like I'm saying some cliched things here, which really annoy me when people say it on Twitter like this. But I think there's something missing, right? It's not just that it's tactical, or Van Gaal can't get him in the side, or he was mentally damaged by that break in. There's something that he is not giving as well. And I hope he can find it over the summer because, you know, that talent is magnificent. His ability to create and score goals is absolutely vitally important for United. And if anything's let United down this season, it's the ability to score goals. And he can do that, or at least create them. And, you know, United do have to find more goals next season to push on. So he's got to be part of the side. And there's just no point in it continuing like this, right? So Van Gaal makes a decision. Either this guy is an important player in the side and he's going to play him, and Di Maria has to basically make that case, or both parties have to go their separate ways, and it'd be better for both if United sold him at probably a significant loss and moved on.
I think the fact that he put him in the starting 11 against Hull had some degree of significance in that regard, because he didn't have to do that, and he did it, and he hasn't done it a lot. The game that really surprised me was West Brom. That was the game I was really surprised when Di Maria didn't feature in the starting 11. I think if he had completely given up on him, he wouldn't have played him today. But the fact that he got injured 20 minutes into that game is really... It's really, really heavy. And I think there's going to be talk in the summer. At the very least, there'll be paper talk about him leaving. Whether there's any truth in it, we'll find out in time. I'll be really, really disappointed if he leaves, because I just think there's more to come. You know, it's not just that he's United's top assist maker, it's that he's made twice as many assists as any other player in the side.
Right, including Mata, right? So
yeah.
Look, I my number one hope here is that United and Van Gaal find a way of getting the best out of this guy.
Yeah.
Because they do that. They've got a match winner. Can I see him making a difference when United, lift the European Cup? Absolutely.
He's done it before, hasn't he? You know.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly.
Ashley Young, then, at this point, worthy of a mention. I mean, a player who's had a much better season than anyone would have expected, and I think, actually, has had a much, much, much better season than Marouane Fellaini, who's the player he's often compared with. I think Young's been basically consistent all season long. I think he's put in an absolute shift for Van Gaal, as Fellaini to a certain degree too, but really just incredible work rate and discipline and diligence, and 5 assists, that makes him joint second. This is all in the league, joint second in United's assist makers. Just 2 goals. The numbers are far from spectacular. There's definitely an upgrade. Well, we've probably already bought an upgrade on him, right? But he's proven just how many positions he can play this season, and I've loved seeing it. I've loved seeing it because he's a player who gets paid too much money for his relative skill level to the rest of the team, but otherwise has kind of really tried to make himself part of the fabric of United since he came. Yeah,
lots of credit to Ashley Young for the increase in performances. 5 assists, 2 goals, the work rate, his defensive ability, great squad man, good pro, stop diving, eats bird poo, all of that, right? So deny it, Ashley, we know it's true. Okay, just admit it, mate. All right, thanks. So all of that is, in the tick column. And when you talk about, we had a discussion last week about relative performances. Relatively, he's done really well. Absolutely. I still think it's not that spectacular. Di Maria's had a terrible season, twice as many assists and more goals. I just think Young is at the apex of his ability this season, and it's not that spectacular. But a good squad man. He's going to be around in the squad for another 3 years. It wouldn't surprise me that much if he never has another season like that again for United. And in a couple of years' time, we're talking about him being a burden on a wage bill because you can't get him off it.
He's not going to get another massive contract, though, is he? Yeah, I mean, this is absolutely a discussion about relative versus absolute, and even in the absolute, he's made a significant contribution this season, but not a world-beating contribution. No one's saying Ashley Young should be Player of the Year for the Premier League or in Europe or anything like that, are they? This is not elite level performance, but this is way better than anyone would have expected from Ashley Young on the relative side, and fundamentally decent on the absolute side. A perfectly serviceable, decent all-round contribution all season. And there's not many players that, I think you could probably argue that Young has been United's most consistent outfield player in terms of the season as a whole.
Consistent's fair, yeah. Yeah, he is consistent, and he's done some things that have surprised me as well. There were even games, hold your breath, mate. Even games where he went on the outside and put a ball in with his left foot.
I told you it happened. You said he was 1 trick. I said 1.5.
I don't know if it's half, though, because that would mean that, 2 times he cuts inside and 1 time he goes outside, right? It's not that. It's not that at all.
1 1/3. As they pointed out, I think it was the Red Mancunian podcast this week pointed out, defenders don't stop him going on his inside and playing the ball in. They're like, even though he does that every time, I think he's put the doubt in their mind that he might go outside.
Yeah, he's got the odd googly up his sleeve, hasn't he? That's it, 9 out of 10, the standard off spinner, and then out comes the googly. Or the wrong one.
When we talked about central defenders, we didn't mention the youngsters, which I guess we should.
Yeah, well, they've McNair, nothing but positive things to say about him. He did have a couple of sort of dodgy games, didn't he, early on, but every time he's played, whether it's been in central defence and a couple of times at right back, he's just looked very, very mature and looked like a player that's going to go on and do great things. Question mark about whether he stays next season. It really depends on recruitment. Tyler Blackett started off well, looked very composed, great athlete. Barely saw him for months after that.
And you could kind of see why when he did come back. And I quite like Blackett, and I think he's definitely got something about him. He's quite exciting to watch when he's on the ball. I think he's very good on the ball, isn't he, as well? But yeah, in totality, the season, whether has he done enough to make you think, yeah, this guy's going to make it at United? As I always go on about, I'm always reluctant to judge defenders when they're young, because so much can change. Like the fact that McNair is in this discussion at all is a complete shock to everyone, because he wasn't in the under-21s last season, was he? He wasn't getting in the side a lot of the time.
No, right, and that same was true of Blackett at one stage in his career as well. So yeah, bonuses for both. Yeah, Blackett's going to go away on loan, right? That's the thing that makes most sense.
Yeah.
And McNair's a question mark and just about recruitment.
So the reason that I started thinking now we've skipped the youngsters is because we're coming to the youngster in attacking midfield.
Right, and this is a big disappointment,
yeah.
Right? Januzaj just not playing, because you wanted him to go from having an excellent season under Moyes, his real breakthrough season, went to the World Cup, to doing that for United every week. And I remember there was a piece by Danny Taylor in The Guardian sort of in the autumn that said something along the lines of, obviously a piece from the comms department at United, Van Gaal is protecting him, and he's going to ease him into the season. Well, he didn't ease him into the season, because he still didn't get any games as the season went on. And when he did, he didn't do enough for us to go, well, Van Gaal's nuts. Because I can't pick out a game in which I think Januzaj performed well.
The kind of trajectory of his season, he was used in central midfield at one point during the 3-5-2 era. Then the first games that he started when we switched to 4-3-3 briefly in that first experiment with 4-3-3 against Chelsea and West Brom, I think. And you could sort of see the logic there. It's like, oh yeah, I've got this player and he can do this. But I don't know whether he was kind of over eager, whether giving him the number 11 shirt was a bit too much of a statement, all this kind of stuff, whether going to the World Cup sort of turned his head, maybe got a little big for his boots. I don't know anything about that, and it feels very unfair really to even speculate on it, but just something not quite right. He looked like he was really trying too hard. His decision making really looked to have dropped, and I always feel like when a player's decision making goes, part of the reason for that is confidence, that they're either pushing themselves too hard to try the spectacular, or they get afraid to try anything. Either way, it's due to a bit of a lack of confidence.
Right, but there's an opening in the side, right? So if United are going to play 4-3-3, that right-hand side where Januzaj can go on the outside or the inside, has the talent to score goals and create, is perfect for him, in theory, right? And it is theoretical, because we haven't seen it from him for a year. So there's a great opportunity there. He's only a year younger than Memphis.
Yeah, absolutely. Bleacher Report asked me to say either why he should or shouldn't go on loan for a season, and I ended up writing about how he should go on loan for a season, because I think, or at least set up a loan till January with the possibility to extend it, because it depends on who we bring in. But if we've brought in another player in one of the attacking wide positions, so there's even more competition for places in a squad that Januzaj can't really get half a sniff of. Even when Di Maria was dropped from the side altogether, it wasn't in Januzaj's favour, was it? It was to play a totally different style of player.
You do manage to get a plug-in for Bleacher Report each week. It's quite impressive.
It's my job, Ed.
Yeah,
It's only because I do it all the time. I'm not like... That wasn't meant to be a plug.
Can you give us a list of your top 10 plugs?
That was one of them, because it was so subtle until you called it out. So yeah, a very disappointing season for Januzaj. And talking of disappointing seasons, let's talk about our strikers. To a man, useless.
Yes, well, it'd be hard to call Wilson useless, because he's barely played.
Right. Not him. He's exempt. Yeah. He's not a man.
That's
he's
true.
Still a child.
Yeah. He's 19. Is it 21 for you? Is that when you become a man?
I think so. Less than 350 minutes in the league. Started against Liverpool in that home game.
That's right.
It was really important in that game, stretching them all over the place.
And we talked about that afterwards and said, this is a statement. This is a statement from Van Gaal. about how good he thinks Wilson is. Apparently we were wrong because he barely played after that. So look, I've got great hope for Wilson, just because, loads of raw materials there. He scores fantastic goals at under 21 level. His pace is brilliant. His movement's good. We haven't seen that finishing in the Premier League or the cup competitions at all from him this season. But we do see it at under 21 level. There's just depends what United do in the transfer market. He could go out on loan. Probably would be very good for him if he did that, right club and all that. Not in the Championship. And if not, he's going to be a very useful addition. Not going to do him much good if he only gets sort of 10 games again next season, half of those being sub.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's it is this captain's privilege nonsense, isn't it? Because in the last 2 months, having Wilson playing at number 9 could not have been any worse than what was actually happening.
No, right. So let's talk about Rooney. Let's talk about Rooney because he's played half the games in midfield, or sort of attacking midfield, and half up front. And he's been terrible in all of them in midfield.
Apart from Newcastle at home, where he was really good in midfield, scored a brace.
I think that's the game where he didn't knock the ball out to the right wing with a Hollywood ball every time he got the ball. In fact, I think after that one, I remember us praising him for being sensible with the use of the ball.
Yeah, and you...
If I've got that one right.
In the week before that, you had said he's not getting ahead of the ball enough from midfield.
That's
and
right.
Then he did.
And then Van Gaal said it, which just proves that not only does David listen, but so does Van Gaal.
Clearly. I hope...
Either that or Giggsy, get out of here, mate. I'm the next United manager.
I really hope that Rooney doesn't listen to this podcast because I feel sad to be giving him a hard time all the time because he's definitely trying.
I'm thinking it's unlikely.
Yeah, me too. I hope none of his family do. If they do, I'm sorry. It's nothing personal.
Well, it is.
From my perspective. I just think he's not been good enough in any of the positions he's played in all season. I think he's done quite well from a captaincy perspective. We've talked about that a lot. And that's about the nicest thing you can say. He's United's top scorer with 12 goals. That's very problematic in all sorts of ways, isn't it? But he's been nowhere near clinical enough playing at number 9, nowhere near creative enough playing behind the forwards, and nowhere near good enough at the role in deep-lying midfield. And don't really criticise Rooney for that. That's just not his position. It's just not been a good season. I don't understand why anyone would say that it was.
Well, a funny thing, I was just thinking about that. So I watch a lot of the games on a stream, as we all do, but it's actually a semi-legal one. So it's the Premier League's official feed. And we have Jim Beglin on there. And Jim Beglin last weekend said, Rooney has been excellent all season. I was like, you what? You what, mate? Please. What are you smoking? Because I don't want any of that. So it's kind of... And I almost felt like that last season where there was this kind of narrative around Rooney that he was excellent. And I just didn't buy it. And I just couldn't see it. And watching him going, where's the excellence here? But it's even worse this season because at least last season he was running around like a headless chicken putting in tackles at left back, right? Everyone loves that, right? No good for the team, but he was doing that. This season, I just don't even see any of that, right? So he got praised by Gary Neville on Monday Night Football for his tactical discipline. That's one way of putting it. The other way of putting it is he can't even be bothered to run around like a headless chicken anymore.
I don't know.
On the ball, he's just been terrible and he's not scored enough goals.
I feel like it's unfair to criticise him for being too headless and not headless enough in the same breath. I feel like that's harsh, isn't it?
Well... Hey, it is, but who said anything about fairness? Not the BBC, mate.
In the interest of some sort of balance, third best key pass average in the squad, but not a particularly good one. 1.4 key passes a game.
Yeah, he's about the 20th best pass completion. So he does make some key passes and he takes risks with his passing, although whether, it's a risk to hit it 60 yards from the centre of midfield to the right wing or not, I don't know.
But, that key pass number, it's like it's relatively good in United, but not absolutely good. It's not that is not good. It's not a fantastic output of, chance creation in games, And this is not about data. I'm just using the data to back up the argument. The argument is all season long, I remember a handful of really good performances from Wayne Rooney, and really, literally a handful. There was a couple of decent ones early in the season. There was that Newcastle game where I thought he just absolutely bossed it. It was really great. He scored some really lovely goals this season. That one against Villa was an absolute peach, the very best of Wayne Rooney, but we don't see anything like the best of Wayne Rooney on a regular basis. And if you're a big Rooney defender, you get very frustrated with our attitude towards it. Like, please know that if he was playing brilliantly, I'd be so happy if he was playing brilliantly. But all I can see is a player who at his best is very much an exceptional player, but of all the players of that level of talent, he consistently performs below his best. And some of it's not his fault. Some of it is the fact that Van Gaal shifted him all over the pitch this season, and it hasn't helped Rooney.
But in a way, that I think that's his fault, because if he was that excellent up front, no one would be talking about moving him. There's no way Van Gaal would have done that. If Rooney had been on a season where he scores 30-odd goals and been his dynamic best, which we haven't seen for 5 years now, right? The one time he scored over 30 goals in the season. Then Van Gaal wouldn't have done it. He'd have found another option in midfield because it'd have been too important. But he's not that important, and his performances haven't been up to the level. And just, it's whether you look at it on key passes or pass or shots on target or shots, accurate shots percentage or number of shots he's always high on. Takes a lot of shots. Not very accurately, but he takes a lot of shots, right? None of the attacking data looks particularly spectacular. You wouldn't expect the defensive data to look particularly spectacular. And I don't have the pro zone data. I wish I did. But I'm betting that it looks like his physical performance is deteriorating too. I bet, and probably someone out there does get the right feed. I think he'll be making less sprints per game, less total distance covered per game, except for those he's playing midfield. That might skew it a little bit. A lower top speed and all the kind of physical data that shows he's declining. And he's 28, but he started very young, and it looks to me that he's on the slide, and his data and performances kind of show that as well.
And he's been our best striker of the season by miles.
Yeah.
Because the rest of them are absolute just... I mean, Van Persie had a brilliant 6-game run in November and December, and that's it. Like 10 goals this season and some absolute stinkers. He's had more stinkers, I would say, even than Rooney.
Yeah.
As a percentage of his performances, because he's played a lot less games. Not a lot less games, actually. Again, this is a narrative thing. But like, he's right up there in minutes played, Van Persie is, because Van Gaal really persisted with him. And I think that both Van Persie and Falcao suffered quite badly from being played in a duo together. But
Van Persie's played more minutes than Young.
Yeah, right. Yeah, there you go. But like, generally speaking, he looks absolutely shot, and we said this in October, and then he sprang to life. But the chances of him springing to life again seem minimal.
He's done.
I think he'd do brilliantly. Like if he goes to Juventus, has been talked about, although they've just signed Dybala, so who knows? But if he goes to somewhere in Italy where it's a bit slower, I think he'd still have a good time because he's still got plenty to offer. But
hey, we'll always have the season before last.
What a season!
That was magic, and sort of worth the £24 million fee.
Oh, totally. Worth every penny of it twice. You could double that fee. Like Alex Ferguson winning the league title in his last season in charge. Yeah. Like it's priceless.
Well, it is. Unless you're a bean counter and you say there's no value in the market. But anyway, yes. So, absolute stinker. So, our long rant about Rooney is not to, as some people accuse me of, cover up some secret love for Robin Van Persie. He's been very, very poor this season, and kind of sad. But there you go. He's in his 30s now. He gets injured a lot. He's had one. In his entire career, he's had 2 seasons when he's been mostly fit. The season before he joined United and the season when he first joined United, and that's it. So there are exceptions to the rule, and we would expect if he stays at United, he will be injured quite a bit next season. So I think he'll go, and I think that makes a lot of sense. I don't see a lot of value in keeping him. The only positive you might say about Van Persie's situation is he has not been as bad as Falcao. And I was cruel today. I did send out a tweet that said if we'd given Bebe 29 games this season, he'd have scored more than 4 goals. But I wonder whether that's actually true.
It's not. Have you seen Bebe?
I have. He's all right. He's turned into a half-decent player.
Oh, yeah, okay, fair enough. Chris Smalling scored as many goals as Falcao. I never been more disappointed about a United thing happening ever, really. The difference between that moment when he was standing on the touchline against QPR, prowling the touchline, the whole atmosphere in the stadium was absolutely electric. Mata scored while that was going on. It was absolutely buzzing. So many Falcao 9 shirts at that game. Far fewer Falcao 9 shirts at the last home game of the season. It has to be said. Just a real disappointment, and what a shame that it didn't work out. Well, I put on Twitter today, one of the best players ever to play in a United shirt, just not when he was playing in a United shirt.
You could rewrite some history here and start thinking about him not being that good. He was, among the 3 best strikers on the planet for 4 or 5 seasons. He was absolutely fantastic, and it's such a shame United didn't have him at that time, but that was during our moments of austerity, which seem to have gone. I did look it up. Bebe, who's been on loan at Cordoba from Benfica this season, has scored no goals in 18 games. So, there you go. I take it all back.
There you go, see? The Falcao thing, it looks like very clever that they got him on loan. It was an expensive loan, but that's a gamble worth taking as far as I'm concerned. It was worth it for the dream, If it had worked even 3/4 of as well as it could have possibly worked, it would have been absolutely spectacular. Because if we'd got 20 goals out of Falcao, the season would look very different, wouldn't it? 20 goals wouldn't be him at his peak, would it? So
yeah, no, very, very true. A good gamble. Talking of gambles, one game for Cordoba, Bebe played in central midfield. Wow. Just wow. I mean, just think of the coach. Bebe, son, number 8 today.
Yes, boss. He's got a lot of football under his belt now, hasn't he, Bebe? All right, so let's give out some awards, because we haven't really done this, right? Let's pick, obviously, player of the season is obvious, but let's pick a defender of the season, a midfielder of the season, and a striker of the season, and then argue about which one of them is outfield player of the season.
Okay, so my goalkeeper of the season is clearly David, just not his missus.
Oh, come on. I won't have this. This typical football misogynistic response of blaming the woman is so out of order. It's horrific.
No, I'm not blaming the woman. I'm blaming David's love for the woman.
Okay, fine.
Ruined Beckham, ruined David.
ruined the Beatles, did it?
Yeah, he did. Yoko.
You see, this is just. You need to read some stuff. Football fans in general.
Yeah,
Learn your history.
I read his Instagram posts.
Learn your herstory, kids.
Yeah, very good.
Anyway.
Okay, so David, my defender of the season is going to be Chris Smalling.
Yeah, mine too.
Yeah, my midfielder is... God, this is a hard one. Really hard midfield, because the mixed season that so many of them had, if it hadn't been for the last 6 games with Carrick out and Herrera's sort of rise, I'd have picked Carrick, but Herrera's probably just going to get it for me, just.
Yeah, goals and assists.
Yeah.
Good ball-round performances. Lovely cheeky grin. Did that thing with put his hands on his head when Mata scored that goal. Michael Carrick had a very good season when he was playing.
It's really hard. If Carrick wasn't out, I think United's end of the season would have been very different, because I don't think it's not just his presence. I don't think he'd let United's performances drop quite as much. But so Herrera gets it, and then forward of the season, James Wilson.
I'm giving it Rooney, just because there's nobody else that possibly in with a shot of that. So
I couldn't give it to Rooney, not in with yours.
Is it Herrera or Smalling then your outfield player of the season?
Well, you see, I don't think Herrera's done enough to earn my outfield player of the season award. I'm not sure Smalling has done enough either, so that makes it super hard. So I'm going to pick Smalling.
Okay. Fair enough. I don't think I'm going to persuade you, but I'm definitely mine's Herrera, because Smalling also had long stretches of bad performances and didn't play that much more than Herrera, just a few minutes more across the course of the season. So, I reckon it's Herrera, because I think he's contributed more to the highs of the season as well. And I think his consistency is higher than Smalling's. And nobody like grabs this trophy and wins it wholeheartedly deserves it. So I reckon Herrera nudges it for the better highs. Not too many, definitely not as lower lows as Smalling's season.
No, although Herrera's performance against QPR was one of the worst of the season. So, hey, back in August or whenever it was.
Against QPR? He was excellent against QPR. Didn't he score twice? No, he scored once.
Maybe I'm thinking someone else. West Brom? It's an early season game.
Anyway. Right. Okay. Oh, yeah, West Brom when he had a broken rib.
Yeah, no excuse. No excuse.
Yeah, okay. Right, fair enough. It's Herrera. I reckon it's Herrera, the outfield.
Yeah, you keep saying Herrera. That. Yeah. I think no one should win this. No one, because no one has deserved it enough. None of the above.
I think you might be right. We are redacting the Rankcast Outfield Player of the Season award. I'm just going to sleekily give it to Herrera while no one's looking. The manager, in totality. Some good, some bad.
Do you want a Manager of the Year award? Yeah, I'll give it to Giggsy.
Until the end of the season. No, I just thought we've kind of gone through all the playing stuff and we haven't really... I think, right, amazing, hilarious, inspirational speeches gets an A+. The best performances that United have put together this season, very high rating for that. But consistency, D-. Substitutions
bad,
so bad. I really was excited when Van Gaal came because I've long held the theory that some of our legendary genius managers of the greatest of all time had a bit of an issue with some in-game management decisions from time to time. But my God, bring back Fergie's terrible substitutions because Van Gaal's are off the chain.
The Tombola came out from... It's funny, at one point the accusation around Van Gaal was that he was stubborn. And we were talking each week about how he'd put out a different tactical formation with a different set of square pegs in round holes. It didn't feel like stubbornness to me. It felt like tinkering. This was classic Fergieism. And this was Van Gaal trying to learn his best team, his best formation, and how to get the best out of his players. It just seemed to take him a very, very long time. And so that goes in the minus column. It's mixed from Van Gaal, isn't it? For as much as we like to think that United are progressing and on the way up, and we will kind of ignore this last 6 games and concentrate on the 6 before that, there are many, many things about the squad and about Van Gaal's management which kind of felt odd as well, I do kind of feel that we're headed in the right direction, but that's only because I think we're going to progress from here, right? So if that doesn't happen, then there's going to be some big question marks because there are a lot of foibles too.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with that. He gets a huge amount of credit for fighting for preparation time. He's kind of tried to tailor pre-season as close to what he would want as possible, which is something no manager at United has done for a long time, and it's cost us.
Yep.
It's cost us pretty heavy on occasion. So that's big positive.
He's going to need it because United have got some big games coming up in mid-August.
Absolutely, that 4th place thing is no joke. It's
no joke. I mean, United. To be fair, we could get the 2nd place team in Turkey, right? Which wouldn't be, and that would be the easiest, right? They're the 17th ranked UEFA nation. So that's about the best it can get. Or we could get some, we could get Monaco or something like that, and that after what they did to Arsenal, that doesn't look that great. We could get 3rd place in Spain. We could get CSKA Moscow. Depends on the Russian season. And obviously they split their campaign, so they'll have played a few games. There are some really difficult ties out there, and we could regret the end to our season.
Yeah, absolutely, and we'll see what happens on that front. So I think, I'm inclined to give the manager a B- for the season. I feel like the ship is generally moving in the right direction, and I am inclined towards being patient with some of the stuff that's not happened that we would hope that had happened. But I think anything more than that would be probably overly generous. I think, we've hit par in terms of finishing 4th, and we've hit above, as we said earlier, some massive shanks and some eagles. It's been a very mixed bag.
Yeah. B-. I mean, I think I give my ratings out of 10, don't I, traditionally?
Okay.
So it's a 6.5 or something like that.
Yeah, all right. That seems just about fair to me. And I think obviously it'd be very disappointing if that's the case at the end of next season.
Yeah, right. So some people would see this in a more positive light, and they'd say that the way Wayne Rooney put it this week was that, our target was fourth. We've achieved fourth. That's a successful season. And if you put it in those terms, the relative terms, Van Gaal gets a good mark, right? KPI met, job done, well done. Heading in the right direction, and we go on fine. But all those kind of weird little things that happen, the kind of strange in-game management, the inability to get the best out of some of our most sort of talented attacking players, constant tinkering, the fact that United were terrible in the Cups and only just made fourth and the season fell out from beneath us, and we've made fourth because Liverpool were terrible, is another way of putting it, and that kind of heads us down to the B-C route, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I think C would be ungenerous because I think the change has been so overwhelmingly significant and there's so many mitigating factors, and this absolutely horrendous injury crisis in the first period of the season, and the fact that Van Gaal came straight off the back of the World Cup into an absolutely ridiculous pre-season tour, So that's where I feel like, given the stuff that was stacked against him, the B- is a bit more fair than the C. And that's my
I agree.
My feeling on that. Loads of people are suggesting for Rankcast award categories, chant of the season.
Chant? Well, it's got to be the one today, hasn't it?
I mean, I have got a tremendous affection for Radamel Falcao. Certainly my most joyous chanting of the season. I greatly enjoyed when it's you Juan Juan Juan, it's you Juan Juan took over for a bit. Oh, what a night isn't really a chant of this season, but it's taken hold this season and it's got its moments. But yeah, I even though I know this is horrendously killjoy, and I do apologise for this, part of me feels very slightly uncomfortable about singing about drinking with Georgie Best when he died from terrible alcoholism.
Oh, yes, but that's what he'd have liked.
Yeah, and that's why I haven't got all like high horse about it, because like his son absolutely loves it, and you think that George Best would certainly see the funny side of it, wouldn't he?
Yeah, no, great stuff. Find a YouTube video or a Vine or something if you haven't heard this one. Very good. Yeah, definitely my chant of the season.
Every single person that's listening to this has not only heard it, but got it hugely stuck in their head.
Yeah. Second place, of course, is Van Gaal chanting United's Red and White Army. Amazing moment after the Arsenal game where some people were filming him signing autographs and they was chanting and shouting Louis van Gaal's Red Army, and someone goes, "Give us one, Louis van Gaal's Red Army." And he went, "Oh, Red Army!" But with this incredibly powerful delivery without moving his head at all. Like, just totally gave it some. Yeah, it was beautiful. Very good.
Okay, other awards categories. I kind of don't want to give out a Worst Player of the Season award, really. It feels churlish and unnecessary. We've been critical enough on this show already.
Yeah, I mean, this would be like shooting the horse who's fell over a fence at the Grand National, right? So, you're getting the curtain, you're putting it around Radamel Falcao, and you're blowing his head off.
Damn it.
Which would be the humane thing to do.
It's not right.
He is hung like a Derby winner as well.
The award for third best goal of the season. Can we agree that Di Maria and Mata get 1 and 2?
I'm giving Mata number 1.
Yeah, me too, absolutely. Without a shadow of a doubt. It was
actually, technically, I think Di Maria's goal is better.
Sure.
But at Anfield, to score with a scissor kick volley, fine pass from Di Maria, by the way, one of his 10 assists. That takes it.
The top 4 goals of the season, that 4-player vote thing, every one of those either scored or assisted by Di Maria, interestingly enough. But yeah, the Di Maria goal might be technically better, but that was in a 5-3 loss to Leicester, as opposed to a incredibly technically difficult goal that was in a 2-1 win over Liverpool. There can only be one winner. But third best goal of the season.
Yeah.
The other 2 on that awards category were Rooney against Villa.
Swivel and volley.
Yeah, and Herrera against Yeovil, swivel and volley.
Yeah, that was a fine goal as well. There was an Ashley Young goal early in the season, I seem to remember, bending it into the top corner.
Sounds totally plausible.
Yeah. I could have just made that up. No, I'm pretty sure he did score one. Herrera's goal was lovely against Yeovil. It was against Yeovil, though. Does that count?
It was.
And I don't want to give Rooney a prize of any kind, even if it is the third best goal of the season.
I think Juan Mata's first goal against Liverpool was a really fantastic team goal as well. Fellaini's goal against West Brom, I'm not really having that. That was very highly rated on that. That was on that kind of long list of those goals, and I'm not quite having that one. I think it was Rooney, you know. I think that the way he plucked that ball out of the air and swiveled and smacked it was... Because that was a pass from Di Maria, but not a very good pass from Di Maria. Rooney had to do a lot of work. I reckon he deserves it.
Uh-huh.
You're not accepting that?
Let's move on.
All right, fair enough. Should we take a last bunch of questions of the season?
Last bunch of questions, and then we'll wrap up for the season. Wow.
Absolutely. What we're gonna do over the summer? We're gonna play some old episodes of the podcast. You said, Ed.
Yeah, I think it'd be great. Let's rebroadcast some. If we have time, we can pick out some favourites. Otherwise, it might just be a random number or big events.
Yeah, absolutely. If you've got a favourite Rantcast episode, that's a weird thing to have. But if you've got a favourite Rantcast episode,
if you're obsessive and you keep them all,
yeah,
like on your mixtape or Rantcast,
send us a tweet and let us know.
Yeah, if we'd actually been sensible with any of this and done some outtakes, we could play an outtake episode. No, that would be terrible.
At 987_Sean says, comedy award, the Phil Jones taking corners or Phil Jones's header on the floor?
No, his face. I'm not. You know, look, maybe it's funny Phil Jones taking corners, but it's really not, is it? I mean, come on, let's think about it. No, Phil Jones tackling Olivier Giroud with his face just takes it every time. Close run second was United's win at the Emirates, which was just ridiculous.
Hello, are you saying that second? I think that's third, because we know what the funniest moment of the season was.
Louis van Gaal's speech.
Nope. Steven Gerrard at Liverpool at Anfield.
And the red card, yes, that's true. I'd forgotten that for a moment. God, there have been some good moments this season.
It was very quick. No wonder you've forgotten it.
Yeah.
But for something that took like 40 seconds or whatever, it was an incredibly memorable moment. Oh, just...
Well, actually, that was the kind of epitome of Gerrard's
farewell
kind
tour.
Of descent, farewell tour, descent into absolute mediocrity. But he's gone from being a very good player to a pub player over the course of the season, which has been absolutely hilarious. Kind of capped off with the fact that he scored a goal in Liverpool's 6-1 loss at Stoke.
Yeah. Steven Gerrard, after that game, said he takes full responsibility for the result. Liverpool played by far their best football after he got sent off. By far. You know, that result had nothing to do with Steven Gerrard getting sent off, except that Liverpool scored when they wouldn't have done otherwise.
Ouch.
At NR Miller 0102 says, can we ever come to terms with the fact that we'll never sign a first team German player?
Yeah.
We keep being linked with like Müller and Schweinsteiger and all these kind of
I'll tell you what, I'm not quite sure where he'd play, but Müller would be a fantastic acquisition. I mean, it's not going to happen because why would Bayern let one of their own go? But I mean, he's so classy with his finishing and his leadership and his work rate off the ball. I mean, he would be, United's hardest worker, their best finisher, the best passer, and probably the biggest leader as well. It would be a fantastic acquisition.
I mean, you say you're not sure where we'd play him. Wouldn't we just play him up front?
Yeah, well, maybe. I mean, but you can just play anywhere across the front 3 or 5 or wherever. So, but yeah, what an intelligent player. Perfect Van Gaal player as well.
Oh, you got me excited now. But we've got to come to terms with the fact that we're never going to sign anyone from Germany's first 11.
Yeah. Is it something to do with the war? What's going on? Is Bobby Charlton still like, I remember the war?
Maybe so. At Matty Lyons 93 says the Paul Merson Prediction Award.
Oh my God.
I'd have to give that to myself for my absolute certainty that at some point Radamel Falcao would start scoring goals this season.
Yeah. Right, Merson, who's another one who, in his preview of United's game against Arsenal for the BBC, said Rooney had an excellent season. Just, burned into my memory, that one.
At Sean KDLA says, the lady who plays the saxophone very well award for going unnoticed but still being worthy of praise. I wonder whether David De Gea's goalkeeping coach is probably worth.
Franz Hook?
Yeah, because there was he's had a lot of goalkeeping coaches, and Chris Wood seemed to bring him on quite a lot last season, but Franz Hook seems to have taken his game to a whole new level.
Yeah. I mean, obviously people say very good things about Franz Hook. Devised the strategy to replace Jasper Cillessen with Tim Krul in the World Cup, apparently. But yeah, Van Gaal called it out in his sort of pre-speech, where he said that De Gea was the sort of most improved player of the season. I mean, and that's saying something, because De Gea was been excellent across the season, apart from those first couple of games. But yeah, loads of praise to Franz Hook. It's funny, isn't it? You know, when Eric Steele went, I think we were all thinking that this was a bad thing, because he'd built a relationship with David De Gea. David De Gea had grown, but Chris Woods and Franz Hook have both done wonders for him. Or maybe just David De Gea is just a world-class goalkeeper and he was always going to progress in this way.
But I don't necessarily think that's the case, because he's progressed quite specifically, hasn't he? You know, there was that brilliant Gary Neville analysis of De Gea on Monday Night Football after the Liverpool game. And he looked at like specific incidents of his footwork and all that kind of stuff, and that would make sense with Van Gaal saying how much he thought he'd improved as well, you know. Favourite Eric Cantona goal? We're recording this on Eric Cantona's birthday, and at Peter Myers 90 gives us an excuse to talk about the King. My favourite Eric Cantona goal is sort of ridiculous. It's certainly not the best one. I talk about this quite often, but it was the equaliser against QPR in March of 1996, in the month where we won 3 games 1-0 and drew 1-1 in the other game, and Eric Cantona scored all United's goals as we marched towards the league. And just seeing it come up on the video printer with 87 minutes gone or something, QPR 1, Eric Cantona 0, and I turned around to everyone in the room and I said, Eric will score, it'll be fine. And he did. That was a lovely memory.
Yeah, and then when you talk about great goals, the chip against Sunderland, the volley against Wimbledon or Crystal Palace at Selhurst Park, the volley against Arsenal, the other goal against Arsenal where he drove it low, where he's got the bandage on his hand, the volley against Liverpool in the FA Cup final 1996. God.
Oh, just so many, and such a variety of goals as well, you know.
Headed, driven, fox in the box, chips, long shots.
A brilliant striker as well as a brilliant number 10 type, wasn't he? A number 10 in the old-fashioned 4-4-2 sense.
Yeah.
But God, just what a player. Happy birthday, Eric. Hope you're having a lovely day.
I'm sure he is.
He's suing the New York Cosmos because they sacked him for punching a photographer. And I feel like if you're going to employ Eric Cantona, you can't just sack him for punching someone. No, right. It's Eric Cantona.
And it's expected, yeah. And New York Cosmos, weird club. So they're playing in the sort of, I think they call it the National League or something, National American League, which is like one down from MLS, but there's no promotion. They did want the other franchise in New York. They didn't get it because no one put up the 100 million that the Sheikh did. So they're now playing in front of like 2,000 people at Columbia University Stadium in New York. But Raul plays for them, which is kind of weird.
Yeah, that is weird.
But he does.
Yeah, anyway, so I hope they give Eric his money, because he punched that photographer for jolly good reasons. At Blabberwan says, do you think Louis van Gaal should consider going drunk into games? Might make us more fun to watch. No, probably not a good idea. And at MUFC Jeff, long-time friend of the Rantcast, says, who do you expect to step up next season compared to this season? Di Maria's perhaps the obvious answer there. He's certainly gonna need to. I wouldn't be shocked if we see a better performance from Rooney next season if he gets a...
Would you? I would be.
Maybe if he gets a more consistent role in the side or whatever.
Yeah, maybe. Only if he plays at number 9 and the side functions around him. And there he's still got room for putting in some good performances.
If he doesn't play better, Van Gaal's going to do something about it, right? He's not just going to let him sit. I really hope we bring in someone that's an obvious choice for captain.
Yeah. Do you know how it came out this week or last week that the Brazilian National Federation had contracts with all their sponsors as to who could play?
Yeah.
I'm not saying United do that, but
he is a Nike player. This could be a bad summer for. That's why it's going to be a rough summer for some players, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I expect. I'm not sure if it's really answering the question, but I expect Ander Herrera will have an excellent season next season. I think Marcos Rocco, and I think this is maybe surprising because United are expected to bring in a top central defender, but I think if he just stays fit, he's going to be a really excellent player. And perhaps my outfield player of the season, Chris Smalling, won't get in the side anymore.
Interesting. A good question though, Jeff. So there's no predictions to make except for in the subject that everyone loves talking about when it comes to football more than anything else, apparently, so it seems. Let's predict. Let's put our reputations on the line.
Oh dear! No, I'm doing none of this. Who are United going to sign? Well, apparently not Matt Hummels.
I mean,
that took too long.
Crazy, isn't it? Like, sorry, we didn't leak enough stories about how we desperately want to buy you, and then waited, didn't sign him before we'd been allowed to talk to him and stuff.
I don't know who United are going to buy, but we need a right back, a central defender, a ball-winning central midfielder, and a striker. And another wide player would be good too. That's 5. It feels like a lot.
I'm going to give you some names.
Go on, give me some names and I'll give you an assessment.
Yeah, and also I want a yes or no on whether you think United will end. Obviously, this is just for a bit of fun because we have no inside information, or I certainly don't have any.
Go on.
Nicolas Otamendi.
Yeah, like him, and he's had a really, really good season. The only worry, and it's a significant one, is that he's just a little diddy and not super quick. He's very good. He's not slow by any means.
Scores a lot of goals as well for a defender.
Scores a lot of goals. He does. He's got a good leap on him for a small man. He would be. Look, don't get me wrong. He would be a fine signing. I would have preferred Hummels, and I think some people have been a little revisionist about that one. But yeah, good player.
Hummels is definitely a player who divides opinion, though, isn't he? I've definitely seen a lot of people that haven't flip-flopped on him. They never wanted him at United.
Yeah, and it's only to do the pace, right? But I mean, he had a mixed World Cup in which his pace was exposed a couple of times, but Germany paid like the highest of high lines.
Yeah, absolutely. And he also was absolutely brilliant in key games in that World Cup. His performance against France. Anyway, Hummels, we're not going to sign Hummels then. That's definitely not happening.
It doesn't seem like it, no. Mikhail Zorc, the Borussia president, came out and said he's definitely staying, so there you go.
All right, staying at Borussia, Ilkay Gundogan.
Yeah, I mean, we spoke about him earlier in the season. Fantastic 2.5 years ago. Will his knee or back or any of his other major parts of his body that have been injured over the years hold up? If we could get the player of 2 years ago, great signing. That's a big if, though, isn't it?
Okay. Do you think he's going to come?
No.
Is he going to be at United next season?
I don't think so.
Okay. Bastian Schweinsteiger.
Wow. On the slide, I think it'd be hard to say anything other than that if you've seen some of his performances this season. It seems like he's not a pet favourite. Would he be a great signing? It just depends. Look at the age profile in United, and it's a pretty good age profile, so we could probably carry another 30-something.
Yeah, absolutely, and he would fit nicely into that midfield 3, wouldn't he?
Yeah.
I feel like he would. Are United going to sign Bastian Schweinsteiger this summer?
No.
Okay. Are we going to get any yeses out of you? Did you say yes to Otamendi? No. You did, didn't you? Yeah.
I did.
I think of all the Bayern players we've been linked to in the last however long it is, he's the one that feels most possible now because he is in the latter phase of his career. He might fancy a new challenge. He doesn't seem to be a Pep favourite. All those things. He knows Van Gaal, obviously. Although, as that text message that we referred to earlier that was mentioned in UWS, maybe that's not necessarily a positive. But, Thomas Müller, I think we've talked about him and neither of us think it's likely that he'll come to United, right? So the one that's going to be a saga all summer unless something happens quickly, one way or another, the boy G. Bale, out in Madrid, miserable as sin, being booed every week. Are we going to rescue him from his hellish time the last season's European champions?
Yeah, well, if you believe Tancredi Palmieri, or whatever he's called, the fat Italian guy who is basically the biggest worm on Twitter, United are bidding for Nicolas Gaitan, which would be terrible because he's not good. I mean, if United do bring in another winger quickly, we can say no on Bale. So, ticks, have the money, are prepared to do a deal. Were prepared to do a deal a couple of years ago and Moyes did. Would love to bring him in. Would be great for the marketing department. So there's lots and lots and lots of ticks. Madrid, I think, if they bring in Royce, which, they really wanted to do, whether that's actually going to happen or not is a big question, would sell. Will they bring in another Galactico that's not David De Gea, because goalkeepers don't count at Real Madrid? And that's the only question, really. If Madrid bring in another player, then Bale's gone and United are going to be favourites. I mean, I'm sure that City and Chelsea would like to bid too, but United are definitely in the best position FFP-wise, even if UEFA do relax the rules.
And then we need a striker this summer. Manchester United need to buy a striker. If they don't buy a striker, I'm going to be so disappointed. Who is that striker going to be? Who is going to play? Is it going to be Lacazette? That's going to be so much money if it is. And he's had one great season and one good season before that. It's a big risk in Ligue 1, which, okay, actually that's not necessarily a league that flatters strikers, is it? Because it's pretty defensive in general, but still. The standard is not super high.
Yeah, it's not super high. I mean, I'm not sure he's ready, but it's stupid when he's just scored 30-odd goals in Ligue 1. Maybe he's the one. I mean, there are not a lot of strikers who are definitely available around Europe. You look at the top league goal-scoring charts. You're not going to pluck one from the Dutch league just to name a league that's not a top league. Lacazette is staying, it seems, or it's going to be huge money. None of them are touchable in Madrid unless United want to spend 50 million plus on Griezmann. He's not really a striker. Ronaldo, Messi, Neymar are not going anywhere. Bacca, too old and not good enough, in my humble opinion. Benzema might be available, and that would be a good choice. But, this is a super tough one. I honestly couldn't tell you the name that would make absolute sense for United that is available.
Zlatan! That's the name that would make absolute sense. Let's replace our ageing forward with a slightly older forward.
Yeah. Maybe Bayern would like to get rid of Lewandowski because he would do well in the Premier League. He's not done well at Bayern this season. Not great, anyway. He's done all right.
Yeah, he's done all right, hasn't he, in certain key moments. But yeah, I would take him off their hands if they're trying to get rid of him. They can have Falcao in a swap deal. Well, we don't own Falcao, we can't do that. They can have Van Persie. Just show him a highlight reel of the 2012-13 season, and I hope they haven't noticed what's happened since.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a really difficult one. All right, name a player out there that we've not already covered, because according to this list, we're making one signing this summer. Name a player out there who's going to be at United when we come back to record in August that isn't there now.
Okay, good question. Well, it should be Pogba. Unlikely to happen. It could be Bale. But maybe a player who's been in the papers recently, Felipe Anderson, sort of attacking wide player at Lazio. Very, very good Brazilian. Lots of talent, bags of pace, would create goals, and United need goals.
Okay, that's a good shout. I think I'm going to say the one that I think is going to happen, somewhat ridiculously, is Bale. And there's a sort of beautiful logic to us signing Gareth Bale and Otamendi, and then some other players in those positions. But I think it's going to be a complicated summer. That's what I think. I think, Van Gaal is very keen on getting everything done early. He said he's going on holiday, but he's going to be speaking to Woodward every day. This is clearly an active window. There's a brilliant quote from Wenger the other week saying, I think United are going to be active in the transfer market because whenever I talk to a player, he's in talks with United. So yeah. We're going to be buying some players. And last summer makes me think we might be shopping at that top table. Yeah.
The top end of the market. Yeah, that's right. The money's there. Massive new Adidas contract, massive new broadcasting deal coming in. You spend or don't. But United definitely need some players, and if we want to compete at the very top, then they'll be spending at the top of the market, assuming Woodward is not on the slow boat back from Australia.
Absolutely.
And he's actually doing the decent thing and picking up the phone to Jorge Mendes.
You make this joke every week on a podcast.
I do, but it's true. It's our sole tactic. It used to be Penny Zahavi in Ferguson's time, and the brown paper envelope is heading to a different destination.
The brown paper envelope with a list of players we're interested in, to be clear. That's what you're talking
right,
about.
Yeah.
Of course, the one that is going that we don't want to go is David De Gea, but I'll be shocked if he's here in August. Delighted, but shocked if he's here in August.
He won't be.
it'd be interesting to see who we get in to replace him, because I don't think Van Gaal's going to want to go into the season with Valdez number 1 and Lindegaard number 2.
I would rather be picking my nose than that combination.
So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for your support of the Rantcast this season. It is absolutely lovely that people listen to this and take the time to say nice things about it. It means such a lot. We do this for fun every week, and we only keep doing it because people say nice things about it. So if you want us to stop, you have the power to make that happen. We'll just have these conversations but not record them. But yeah, it's been really, really lovely. We've had some really nice emails from people that have said they really kind of value and appreciate getting to listen to the Rantcast every week, and it's just absolutely awesome. So want to very much thank in particular the man without whom this series and the next series of the Rantcast would not have happened, and that is producer Tom. You can find him on Twitter at TeejSound. If you need a sound engineer, I'm pretty sure he's the best in the business, because just listen to our episodes that we've done ourselves versus the one that Tom's done if you want to see how good he is at his job. So yeah, thanks so much, Tom.
Yes, thank you, Tom.
And yeah, massive thanks to you, the listeners. We've got in touch with everyone who is a financial friend of the Rantcast, who has donated at unitedrant.co.uk/donate.
Thousands of you, thousands. We could almost fill Old Trafford.
We couldn't.
We couldn't. But why couldn't we? Tight, the lot of you.
Thanks to everyone that's left a review on iTunes. That's super helpful. Thanks to everyone who's just forget about money or anything like that. Anyone that's taken the time to reach out with a tweet saying,
I can't even bring myself to read the reviews on iTunes since that guy accused us of being from Watford.
He's rewritten his. I
don't care. It's burned into my memory.
He said we'd be City fans by now. He was. Time has proven him incorrect on that one.
Yeah.
Although I do like Rob Pollard, but that's not the same as actually being a City fan. Anyway, if you want to get hold of us in the summer, you can do that on all the social media stuff. I'm going to be writing on Bleacher Report, bunch of stuff all week, every week. Ed, I'm sure you'll find time to get some United coverage in on unitedrant.co.uk.
Yeah, it's always hard during the summer because I generally don't talk about transfers. Because, what can you say that's not been written about elsewhere, especially by you on Bleacher Report?
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, content is difficult, but I'll make something up.
Yeah. We're not going to be back for pre-season because, honestly, it's a corporate-sponsored tour of America. It's not worthy of in-depth podcast-based analysis. But read my analysis of it on Bleacher Report if you would. Thanks very much. Anyway, we will be back ahead of the first game of the season to do a big in-depth season preview, look back at what I'm sure will have been a very exciting summer of transfers, and look forward to next season ahead. I can't believe another season of football and another season of the Rantcast in the bag. Ed, a pleasure as always.
Yes, it was. Thank you for joining in and making it what it is while I kind of drone on about Wayne Rooney.
Absolutely. So there's only one possible play out track this week. Normally we play out the end of season episode with the full blast of the Calypso, but in honour of man like Georgie Best, it's got to be this one. So you're welcome. You'll have this stuck in your head all summer anyway, and we'll see you again in August.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.